Hello dear friends, welcome to the Never Do Through the GUI, what you can do through the CLI channel. I am Vangelis and today we will talk about some clarifications regarding these benchmarking videos, and let's get into the video right away. It started with this comment by BindASmart, and I want to do this video, to create this video in order for it to be as a reference video for me to refer to similar comments, but this is, let's say, the initial comment that kicked this video. It is by this viewer, as I said, BindASmart. First of all, what I want to say is that his initial comment was not, let's say, so cordial or polite, and we had a little exchange, and he edited his initial comment to what you can see now. So I will not go into the initial comment, and what I want to say is that at least in my channel I want, whenever somebody comments, for him to be cordial and to not include any name calling, because I cannot understand the point in name calling. If you disagree with something you see on my channel, on the videos, or wherever, you can very politely and with a good manner state your disagreement in order to have a constructive conversation. I don't see the point in name calling or using other non-cordial language. So this is the first point. And now the second point is to read this comment and address the points. So what Mr. Mart says here is, let me move me a little bit out of the picture. He says, if you first of all, it's about the Drogon Rust with Drogon benchmark, and what he says is, if you ever worked in real modern backend which is dominated by containers, then all these comparisons you have posted are pure BS. Not even Random Joe would expose these frameworks that you are testing to public traffic at first place. Moreover, your latency is useless as everything is running on same machine, but it's a whole different beast in real world scenario. You pitch dynamic languages like Python Node against Rust without even optimizing them for multi-core architecture. Companies would rather prefer to cast their DB calls than writing code in highly optimized languages like C++, Rust, as I/O is where the most backend applications experience bottleneck. This was his comment, and I have broken it down here. So that we can address the points one by one. So the first point is, if you have ever worked in real modern backend which is dominated by containers, then all these comparisons you have posted are pure BS. Now, I cannot understand why this is true, because even if you port the same programs that we run on the actual machine and port them and bench them within containers, then the performance is similar. Moving these frameworks and these comparisons into containers would not change the throughput of the framework. So I don't really understand what he's trying to say. If he's trying to say that the architecture is wrong because let's say the trend currently, or not the trend, let's say the norm is using containers, then yes, I agree. The architecture that I implemented in these benchmarks is not production ready. Neither are the applications production ready, neither is the code production ready. I am just trying to create some minimal application, a minimal API based on the instructions of each framework on the docs in order to be able to benchmark it. So not using these frameworks and applications within containers, I cannot myself see how these benchmarks are pure BS. This is what I have to say for point number 1. So, point number 2. Not even random Joe would expose these frameworks that you are testing to public traffic at first place. Again, if he is talking about the actual frameworks, I cannot understand why you would not expose these frameworks to public traffic. What we tested are valid frameworks like Node, like .NET, like Java, like Rust, etc. Why would not you expose these frameworks to public traffic? If, on the other hand, he means that the applications are not production ready and not ready to be exposed to public traffic, then we agree, of course. As I said, I am creating a minimal application for each framework in order for us to have something to benchmark. I'm not creating a production ready application. I think this is very obvious. So depending on what this viewer means, on point 2, I either agree or disagree. Point number 3. Moreover, your latency is useless as everything is running on same machine, but it's a whole different beast in real world scenario. Again, I agree with this point. I have said it myself in some videos that this is not the optimal way of performing the benchmark, since we are running both the server and the actual tool that benchmarks this server. We're running them on the same machine. Give me a second. Plus, the whole setup is not production ready. I have said it myself, so I would agree with point number 3. I don't have anything to say different. Yet again, as I said, my overall goal is to have a minimal application, a minimal API, which we will be able to benchmark in order to get some insight, and I will come back to this insight. Point number 4. You pitched the dynamic languages like Python, Node against Rust without even optimizing them for multi-call architecture. What I have to say here is that indeed I have not optimized these languages for multi-core architecture, but I have not done it for 2 reasons, let's say. One is that I will not spend much time on creating a production ready again application. For example, the very first video with PHP was struggling even to cope with the load that we benched the API, if you remember. If you want, you can go back and check the video. So PHP could not even handle the load. Of course, I could make PHP handle the load and even perform better than Rust if I spinned 1,000 or 500,000 containers. But this is not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to make the non-fast and efficient frameworks match Rust. What I'm trying to do is I am trying to stress this difference. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. I want to make obvious, very obvious, the difference that exists between 2 minimal viable products in these languages or in these frameworks. So I will not go and optimize PHP to make PHP comparable to Rust. One point is this: so I'm not trying to optimize these frameworks. I'm trying to get a minimal viable product according to the docs and see how they perform. This is what I'm trying to do. I have not optimized Rust either. I'm taking a pure application as it is depicted in the Rust docs. I am copy pasting code and I'm running it. The same, I do the same for the other frameworks. So I'm not trying to optimize anything. I'm trying to get the minimal viable product and see how it performs. Yeah. As I said, this is the actual purpose of this benchmarking, to see how they perform out of the box, let's say. And another point that I would stress about point 4, about this optimization, you should not forget that if we try to match the performance of Rust, for example, with PHP, let's take PHP for example. I'm not bashing on PHP currently, I'm just stating facts. And let's say that we want to optimize PHP in order to match the Rust throughput. So we containerize our application, and we have the ability to spin up multiple containers with the load balancer and all that stuff. We may be able to match the Rust performance, or the quickest framework's performance, but this will come at a cost regarding our resources, because if we spin up multiple containers, we will consume more resources than the other framework that only needs one container. So to make it even more explicit, let's say that one Rust container can handle, let's say, 1000 requests per second, and the PHP container, let me move my hands here, the PHP container can handle, let's say, 50 requests per second. If we multiply the PHP container, we may be able to match the Rust container regarding throughput, but we will have exceeded a lot the resources that the Rust container needs. So at the same time, I'm trying to test both the throughput and the resources that each framework needs. So for me, even if we are able to match with PHP or another language like Python or whatever, if we are able to match the Rust throughput at the expense of a lot more resources, then for me this is not viable either, because for large companies, or for whoever, not only large companies, the total cost of their application also matters. So spinning up multiple containers and consuming a lot more RAM and a lot more CPU cycles is not an option for me either. So I'm testing both the throughput and the resources consumption. So this is another reason why I did not optimize these slower frameworks for multi-core architecture or for multiple containers, or to try to match the performance of Rust. And point number 5, companies would rather prefer to cache their DB calls than writing code in highly optimized languages like C++, Rust, as I/O is where the most backend applications experience bottleneck. This is also a correct point. Of course, they cache their DB calls and they cache whatever they can cache. This point has come up quite a few times through comments, and what I am consistently responding to this is that this get users, let's say, example that I use with the users, is just something that I created in order to be able to stress the frameworks. So do not think about it as something that it is DB related and it could be cached and whatever else. It is just some operation that I wanted to perform on the framework and on the language in order to be able to put some stress on it. It could be something else. It could be, let's say, calculating a Fibonacci sequence or whatever else. But I decided that this user's, let's say, example was something that could be comparable to all frameworks and would provide me with enough stress on the framework in order to see actual results. So I cannot disagree with this point 5, but my response is that the get users is not trying to emulate DB calls or this kind of scenario of a production application. It is just something that I wanted to use as I wanted to cause some computations on the frameworks and on the languages. So point number 5 is correct. I agree with that. And some other comments are, let's come back to this, that these benchmarks are pure BS. I would like to say that, of course, these benchmarks are not a definitive guide regarding the performance of the frameworks. As we have also seen ourselves, various things play quite a role in the output of the application. With Rust, we saw that with various APIs and how we structure our code, what APIs we use, etc. And I'm sure that this is valid for other languages too. So these benchmarks, these videos that I create are not a definitive guide, but I would not call them pure BS either, because they provide some insight on the performance of these languages and frameworks. Of course, we cannot trust the actual numbers, but we get an insight on their, let's say, on their order of magnitude of difference. For example, we saw that PHP was struggling to cope with the load, but Rust was crunching the numbers with no problem at all. We saw that the .NET framework is comparable to Rust. We saw that the JavaFX framework was not performing good at all compared to Rust and to the Spring Boot Java framework. So I would not call these benchmarks pure BS at all, but on the other hand, I would say that they have provided us with a quite good insight regarding the performance. Plus, we found out other things regarding Rust about the runtimes and other information that I think, at least in my mind, that it is very beneficial. Of course, this specific user can still, let me put it up here for you to see the point 5, because I was covering it up. So yeah, to come back to my comments, maybe this user, Mr. Mard, will not agree with what I just said in this video, and of course other people may disagree, etc. And it is okay to disagree, but yeah, other people find the benchmarks useful. I find them useful, and this is why I do them. First of all, I do these benchmarks for myself, because I want to know the relative performance of these languages and frameworks. It is beneficial to me, and it seems that it is beneficial to other users too. So if you do not disagree, I can totally respect that, and I can totally agree, receive your criticism if there is such criticism. And indeed, I want to receive criticism, as I did in some videos, in order to make them better from more experienced users. But what I would again want to say is that I want to, if somebody decides to comment, I would expect him to be cordial and to be polite and to be within a structured context of a discussion. I think this is all that I wanted to say in this video. This video will be, as I said, a reference video which I will refer to everybody that in the future comments, creates a comment and states the same things about caching and about this and about that. I think that I have made quite explicit what I'm trying to accomplish with these benchmarking videos and how I think about them. And I think we can move forward and test more stuff. I have a lot of suggestions that I have not found the time to address them because, of course, there are other things that I have to attend to, and I do not do YouTube videos. This is not the only thing that I have to do. So yes, have a nice Sunday. It is Sunday here in Greece. Have a nice Sunday and have a nice day, and see you in the next video. Bye.